that I had my gain on my mic turned down super, super low. So now it's back to the middle. So you'll have to let me know if you like that better than what I've been doing, let's say at least the past couple weeks, because I don't remember the last time I messed with it. I feel like you can't really see the background very well. Yeah, okay. Spooktober is supposed to be spooky. I guess I could have put up the spooky one. Yeah. Anyway, I found a article on today.com and I thought it was super interesting, so I thought I would read it to you. And I'm going to apologize because my tummy is grumbling. I just fed it, I swear, but it's complaining. So this article is called 15 Real Ghost Stories That Will Leave You Scared Stiff. It says, these tales of the unexplained encounters and paranormal occurrences just might make you lose some sleep. In honor of Halloween and all things spooky, we've collected a list of the best scary ghost stories that are even more chilling because they are 100% real. At least according to the people who reported experiencing these supernatural encounters and apparitions. Even if you don't believe in paranormal occurrences, you might change your mind after reading these real life stories of ordinary people. I got a frog. Who claim to have experienced extraordinary events. Some of those even rival those found in horror movies. To help curate our collection, Today.com spoke with ghost experts and other knowledgeable sources on the subject. Too many true crime videos. Including Derek Hayes, the host of Monsters Among Us, a podcast in which callers anonymously share details of encounters they cannot explain. The show receives hundreds of submissions from across the globe, and according to Hayes, a few of those stories have stuck with him. I imagine so. Every once in a while, somebody will call in with one of those personal stories. It's that personal connection for me that really brings it home, he told Today.com. And some of those are just terrifying. We've included some of Hayes' favorite tales, as well as a variety of other ghost stories we think you'll find fascinating, including haunted houses, jails, and unexplained experiences with spirits and other phenomena. Whether you think ghosts are real or not is totally up to you. However, one thing is for sure. By the time you're done reading these, you just might be a believer. So the first one is called The Grandmas in the Cemetery. Jeff, a resident of Dayton, Ohio, was driving with his 3-year-old son Miles in the back seat when they passed by a modest cemetery decorated with only flowers and small plaques. It basically looked like a giant garden, Jeff explained. According to Jeff, as they drove by, his toddler, who had been happily singing, abruptly stopped, pointed to the cemetery, and exclaimed, "Look at all those people." Now Jeff turned to look, but he didn't see a soul. Confused, he asked his son what he was talking about. "All those people over there," his son replied. "There sure are a lot of grandmas." As Jeff tells it, chills ran down his spine as he asked his son what the people were doing. And Miles replied, "They're all standing there, looking down at the grass." Completely unsettled by this conversation, Jeff Jeff said, I don't know if my kid has a sixth sense or just a wild imagination. I do believe that kids are more sensitive to things like this because it kind of gets not beaten out of us as adults, but the fantasy kind of world kind of goes away the older you get, I think. The next one is the ghost of the Stanley Hotel. I have a rock from the Stanley that my niece brought me. It was so cool. The Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado has been around for more than 100 years. It was built as a posh getaway for the wealthy seeking solitude in the mountains. As the years passed, however, the occupancy declined, and by the 70s, this grand hotel had fallen into disrepair. It was around that time that famed author Stephen King spent the night there and was inspired to write the book The Shining. The book and the film helped return the Stanley to its former glory, and now guests come in droves to see the hotel that inspired one of the scariest movies of all time. Given its history, it should really come as no surprise that many visitors report strange happenings. Aware of the ghostly rumors, Texas resident Henry Yao booked a last-minute getaway in April of 2016 just to check it out. After arriving, he had dinner and then wandered around the Stanley to take photos. Stopping at the staircase, he waited for the people to clear the area and then took a picture, really thinking nothing of it. Later that night, however, he fell seriously ill. He said, I felt sick, I had the shivers, and I was like, something is really wrong. His companion suggested that he go to the emergency room, but Henry refused. On the trip home, he began swiping through the pictures he had taken when he discovered what he said was a really, really strange image of someone standing on the stairs. Except no one had been there when Henry had taken the photo. The next day, he posted the picture on Instagram, half joking that he'd captured a ghost, and the world took notice. Almost overnight, he found himself in the limelight with his ghost picture, warranting attention from global media outlets and paranormal experts who wanted to examine the photo. Some experts say that there's two ghosts, and other people say that the reason I got sick is because the ghost was trying to materialize, taking energy out of me, he said. There's so many theories about this. So what does Henry think? I have no idea, he says, with a laugh. prostitution. And whether it's true or not, Victor says that Whaley reported haunted happenings in his home in the years that followed, citing heavy footsteps going up and down the stairs while he worked in his office. He would sometimes also hear a man, grunting, if you will, and he would attribute that to Yankee Jim Robinson. After dying of natural causes, Whaley is said to have become a ghost himself at the house, with some visitors claiming to smell the cigars that he enjoyed smoking, or you might even see him at the top of the staircase looking down at you. Other mysterious occurrences at the Whaley include the unexplained scent of lavender, attributed to Whaley's wife's perfume, as well as possible ghosts of the Whaley's family pets. Ghost cat. You might feel something brushing up against your leg, even licking your leg in some case, and they believe that that is the family dog, says Victor Santana. So, has Victor ever actually seen an apparition? I have never seen a ghost, he confirms. However, he has had a couple of odd experiences, including seeing a doll that seemingly appeared to move on its own once. Absolutely freaking not. I don't mess with dolls or clowns or little kids. No. Occasionally, he's heard a woman's voice crying out late at night. Victor was also present during a paranormal investigation at the site in which EVP, or an electronic voice recorder that's used by investigators, picked up something truly spine-chilling. So, Santana explains, you set up a recorder and you ask questions like, is there anyone in the room with us? What is your name? And so one of the questions was, are you happy we are here with you tonight? And when you play back the recording, you hear someone say, no. Can you imagine? The next one is the hauntings at the Lizzie Borden house. Now, I love the Lizzie Borden story. I want to go there. It is on my bucket list. I have watched every possible imaginable thing that there is on this case. I did a long video on it for Halloween 2 or 3 years ago, so definitely check out the link in the description, and I will link that video and whatever else we get mentioned here. So, if you don't know, on August 4th, 1892, Andrew and his wife Abby Borden were found brutally murdered in their Fall River, Massachusetts home. Though murder wasn't uncommon in the 1800s, the fact that they were bludgeoned to death with an axe, and that the main suspect was their 32-year-old daughter Lizzy, was certainly kind of uncommon. The crime and the trial that followed made headlines around the world. Lizzy was ultimately acquitted, but she remains forever linked to the heinous killings, as does the home where the crime was committed. Okay, quick vote right now. Do you think Lizzie Borden did it? I'm torn. also talks of a picture that fell over and slid across the floor without any plausible cause, and a closet door that once opened of its own volition. On the eve of the anniversary of Andrew and Abby's murder, St. John says that she and 2 other tour guides at the house felt a sudden, sharp, piercing pain in their left eyes. The same exact location of Andrew Borden's fatal injuries. But perhaps the most unsettling of all is the story St. John tells of a tour guide at the Lizzie Borden house who asked their group to silence their cell phones before beginning the tour. Moments later, a guest's cell phone rang and she looked up and said, "It's my mom." The tour guide asked if she wanted to leave and take the call, to which the woman replied, "Well, she died 2 years ago." Can you even? The next story is the ghost of Captain Joseph White, another destination on my bucket list. Though Salem, Massachusetts is best known for its infamous witch trials, there have been plenty of other chilling stories throughout its 400-year history. One of them is the tale of Captain Joseph White, a wealthy merchant who was found bludgeoned to death in his bed. It was a crime motivated by money, according to Giovanni Albasso, owner and tour guide at the Salem Historical Tours, who says the 82-year-old merchant was allegedly targeted by greedy brothers hoping to get their hands on his will. Brothers Joseph and Francis Knapp enlisted the help of Richard Crown and Shield, that's a last name, to help get the job done. Late in the evening, when Captain White is asleep, Richard comes in. He goes upstairs to the 2nd floor, takes a club and bashes the captain over the head and crushes his skull. The murder resulted in a scandalous trial and is said to have been the inspiration for Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, as well as the game Clue. Whether it's the brutal nature of the crime or revenge for the attempt to steal his money, the spirit of Captain Joseph White is said to still wander the halls of his former home. People believe Captain White is roaming around that house protecting whatever treasure he reportedly has, Albasso says. Tourists take photo of the house, and despite it being empty, many pictures reveal shadowy figures, both male and female, in the windows and on the landing of the Gardner Pingree house. So who are they? No one knows, but it's definitely absolutely active, Albasso says. Oh Lord. The next one is the haunted ventriloquist doll. I saw this movie. It was not good. Okay. Oops, sorry. When Marty was a child back in the 90s, she tells Monsters Among Us that she was a fan of ventriloquist Edgar Bergen and his dummy sidekick Charles McCarthy. She says that when her father came across a ventriloquist doll as he wandered through a small magic shop located outside of Santa Rosa, California, he decided to buy it for her birthday. Absolutely not. While ringing up the sale, Marty says the cashier gave her father weird vibes and said to him, "You know, when you put your hand inside the doll, he's gonna come alive." Laughing off the comment, he brought the dummy home to his daughter. According to Marty, she was over the moon when her dad gave her the doll. She stated she was so happy, she was obsessed. But before long, strange things started happening. Though impossible because the doll's head was made of hard plastic, she says that its expression would since moved away, but she says they still think about the doll and the possibility that it will eventually find one of them. Freaking no. Oh. I told you I don't do dolls. The next one is the imaginary friend. Jacqueline from Oklahoma says that while her memories have faded over the years, she recalls having an imaginary friend when she was young. Her grandparents, Granny Junie and Pa Hank, lived in a small home with a quiet backyard, and Jacqueline recalls visiting them as a child. I have very good memories of my Pa Hank. He would sit under the tree with me and tell me stories. The stories were often about his life and memories of Prohibition, she says. He was a very interesting character. The only problem with this is her grandfather died in 1981, and Jacqueline was born in 1982. I don't think I ever realized I was getting stories from a ghost, she said, adding that the rest of her family knew of his presence in the house. My Granny Junie would never stay in the house on the anniversary of his death, she says. He did die in the house. Jacqueline also recalls hearing Pa Hank get up in the middle of the night when she was staying there. It never occurred to me that these were memories of an entity. In hindsight, Jacqueline says that even though her childhood imaginary friend was actually her dead grandfather, it casts it in a different light because it was a relative, not a stranger. It never felt like ghosts. It felt like talking to my Pa Hank. The next one is titled The Kidnapping Ghost. On the podcast, a caller named Joe tells of moving from Georgia to California in the late 1990s. Soon after, he says his brother followed him to the Peach State. Moving to Georgia from California. Yeah. His brother followed him to the Peach State and rented an old house built in the 1800s. It looked nice from the outside, but it did not feel good from the inside, Joe said. According to Joe, things seemed off from the moment he helped his brother move in. I walked up to the house and I went, oh man. The hair stood up on the back of my neck and I just felt ill at ease, like this place is not cool at all. Moments later, while carrying items into the bedroom, Joe said he heard whispering. A heated whispering, almost an argument, between two people that seemed to be hovering in the top of the ceiling area of the room, he adds. Joe ran out of the room and asked his brother if he felt something was off about the house. His brother had also picked up on the vibe, but assured Joe that things would be alright. Joe said, as long as you're good. I am not good, but I'm going to help you, and then I'm going home, and I probably won't come back here. Well, that's a good brother. Sure enough, Joe's brother began experiencing unusual occurrences in the house. The most alarming, though, was when Joe says his young niece was found wandering alone on a busy road, with her hand up in the air. Police and other agencies were called to investigate the incident, and when asked, his brother's 4-year-old explained she'd gone for a stroll with the old lady that lives there. She just wanted to go for a walk, so we went for a walk. Given that the front door was too heavy for a 4-year-old to open by herself, no one could understand how she was able to leave the house. According to Joe, his roaming the halls of the restaurant, which once served as a hospital during the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. It makes sense, Morosini tells Today.com. It's where they would quarantine all the sick people. Apparently, quite a few souls have passed just due to that. The inn is also the site for other untimely deaths, including that of a young girl who was struck and killed by a train while she played near the railroad tracks bordering the property. Oh, that breaks my heart. According to Morosini, a father and son visiting the inn stepped outside the restaurant to watch the trains. After coming back inside, Morosini overheard the father reassuring his son that there wasn't anyone else outside, despite the fact that the son insisted a little girl had been sitting beside them. He was like, "She was sitting right next to me, and she was crying. You didn't see her." And the dad said, "There was nobody there. It was just me and you, buddy." Other ghosts are said to haunt the inn, including that of proprietor John Stone, who Morosini says didn't actually die there, but is believed to be watching over the place. One night when Morosini was alone at the inn, she says she heard footsteps walking directly above her on the second floor. And I was just like, there's no explanation for that whatsoever. I'm leaving. Still, she doesn't believe that the spirits have bad intentions. She said, "I have never had that scary hair on the back of your neck, get out of the building feeling while there." That's good. The next story is the unexpected passenger. In the 1990s, Julie, a resident of Portland, Oregon, was driving out of the city to meet with friends when she found herself in traffic. The 18-year-old soon discovered that the cause of the slowdown was due to a dreadful car crash, and to her horror, as she passed, she realized someone had died. A moment later, there was a woman sitting in my passenger seat, Julie says. And she admits that it sounds crazy. Julie reports, though, that she saw a woman dressed in work clothes seated next to her. And despite being in complete shock, apparently the woman in the passenger seat was even more freaked out. Julie said she looked like somebody who just suddenly ended up in someone else's car. Panicked, the woman demanded to know how she got there and who Julie was. And it was at that point that Julie noticed the woman had, this unearthly quality about her, and she realized that whoever she'd passed on the side of the road was somehow in the car with her. "Ma'am, you need to calm down. My name is Julie, and I'm here to help," she says she's told the stranger. She went on to explain to the woman that she'd been in a car accident and had somehow ended up in her passenger seat. And the woman was stricken. At that exact minute, they passed a clearing in the trees, and with some encouragement from Julie, the woman peacefully looked towards the sun and disappeared. Completely in disbelief, Julie pulled over and convinced herself she'd imagined the whole dang thing. Several days later, however, a story came on the news about a trucker injured in a car accident. Before they finished, they threw up a picture of the woman that was in my car and explained that she had passed away during the accident, Julie says during the podcast. It was unbelievable. It was just feel it in your bones. And there are, in fact, plenty of ghost stories from the prison. We ran into female spirits there, which I thought was incredibly interesting, Argy said. One of them, she says, is likely the wife of the former warden who was accidentally shot and killed while pulling a box down from a closet shelf. According to Argy, they've captured recordings of a woman crying and, on occasion, smelled rose perfume in the bedroom. Another spirit that's said to haunt the Reformatory is a woman who sits in the prison chapel and cries. When you approach this woman sitting in the pew, she disappears. Other people have seen her walking, Argy says. And then there's the malevolent presence there. With the help of a medium, she says that she communicated with it. Absolutely not. He would literally be cussing at me, she recalled. Now, while their sessions with the angry ghost were unnerving, it wasn't until he followed Argy's partner home that they were truly terrified. See, that's why you don't mess with that stuff, man. I believe in it, but I ain't messing with it. One day, she saw him through a reflection of her window. She saw this thing in the back, this shadow figure, and she knew it was him, ArgyTellsToday.com. After seeking the help of a paranormal expert, Argy says that they have not seen him since. Well, thank goodness. The next story is the phantom ambulance lights. In the mid-1990s, Robert worked as a paramedic in a small Texas town, and he tells the story of a strange happening that he and his partner experienced on a call one night. After receiving a call for a female with chest pains, he and his partner climbed into the ambulance to make their way to the address. We took off code 3, which means using our emergency lights and sirens. In the absence of GPS back then, Robert says they relied on maps and mailbox numbers to guide them to the rural location. I never even thought about that. The address we were going to was very rural, Robert says. There were no street lights, and it was a very dark night, so it was extremely difficult to read the mailboxes. As they searched for the correct driveway, Robert says he turned off the sirens. After determining that they found it, they pulled in, only to discover they were mistaken. So we turned off the emergency lights as we backed up to the road and went to the correct driveway. Upon arriving at the scene, the paramedics realized they had been at this exact same address the month prior for a male suffering with cardiac arrest. In typical medical black humor fashion, we mentioned to each other that this was probably the wife now having a heart attack, and she was going to join her husband. They jumped from the ambulance, bags in tow, and began treating the woman, who fortunately ended up being okay. Robert said he sent his partner to get the stretcher from the ambulance so they could take her to the hospital for evaluation. When he returned, he had this strange questioning look on his face, according to Robert. The pair wheeled the patient out to the emergency vehicle, and that's when Robert saw the ambulance had nearly every light that it was equipped with turned on. Strobe lights, floodlights, interior lights, everything on. After taking the patient to the hospital, Robert asked his partner why he turned on all the lights, and the partner said, "I didn't." In fact, he reminded Robert that they'd shut them all off after going to the wrong address. Neither of us recall activating the emergency lights, strobes, or floods when we arrived at the house. There was no real reason to do so. We'd already gotten there. So by the end of it, we wrote it off as her husband, letting her know he was still there. Oh, that's sad. The next story is titled The Ghost Dog. Sarah from Lancaster, Ohio, tells Monsters Among Us the story of her childhood dog, Cricket, who, according to Sarah, was a pretty unhappy dog. She was super cranky, Sarah says. She only liked my grandma, and she didn't seem like she felt well. But still, the family loved their dog, and they were devastated when the pup ran into the road and was struck and killed by a passing car just as they were preparing to leave on family vacation. It was very upsetting, especially with me being a child. My grandmother was there, and she loved Cricket, and Cricket loved her. They had this special relationship that none of us had. Despite the loss, the family had prepaid for their vacation, and with not a lot of money, they decided to still go, leaving Cricket's body with an aunt who offered to take care of the necessary details. Upon arriving at the hotel where they were staying, Sarah says that her family was understandably upset about the tragedy. We all go to bed, and in the middle of the night, I'm not sure why I woke up, but I startled. I woke up and I sat up in bed. I looked down, and on the floor was Cricket. A full-body apparition of her, says Sarah. She looked so happy. She looked like a different dog. She was jumping around. All that crankiness and unhappiness she had was gone. It was as though she was coming to tell me she was okay. It was the clearest apparition. I've never seen an apparition again. That was the first and only time. Sarah says she told her mother in the morning what she'd seen, and her mom dismissed it as her middle school brain trying to make sense of the loss. I guess that's possible, Sarah says, but to this day, I can still envision Cricket in that moment. I've never forgotten that image, and it helped me feel better about what happened, because she seemed so happy, and I do think she was visiting me that night. Oh, little baby. The next one, I think, is the last one. Let's see. Yes. Oh, now I gotta go back up. Oh, no, there's two more. Sorry, just kidding. I must have jumped right over that. The first one is the ghosts of Willoughby Coal. Built in the late 1800s, the Willoughby Coal Building in Willoughby, Ohio, housed a variety of businesses in its time, including a train depot, a cheese factory, and a flour mill. Over time, the relationship between the two owners grew. I'm sorry, I skipped a line. In 1912, it became the very prosperous Willoughby Coal, supplying coal to local residents before it was sold to Henry Windus and William Norris in the 1930s. Over time, the relationship between the two owners grew contentious. Henry wanted to buy the businesses from Don Norris, but Don was unwilling to sell. My notes just got all jacked. Okay. One morning, Norris allegedly told his wife he was going out for bread and to check on repairs being done on the Willoughby building, but he never returned. Several hours later, his body was discovered in front of the door, laying in a bloody heap. Even though his death was untimely and ruled accidental, Archie says that Norris's family believed he'd been murdered. Though no one knows what really happened that morning, Archie believes his spirit still haunts the building. We have come in contact with him on many, many occasions, she says. She claims that others have reported seeing faces in the windows and have heard unexplained footsteps and other unusual occurrences happen in the building. But Norris is not alone. We have 5 or 6 resident spirits in the building. The next and last is the ghost nanny. Kip, a caller from New York, talks of an old home that he and his wife purchased. Upon moving in, his wife invited her sister and newborn baby to come for a visit. They stayed in the downstairs bedroom, and my wife was sleeping in an upstairs bedroom. And the first night their guest stayed, his wife overheard her sister talking to someone in the middle of the night. The next morning, Kip's wife asked who she'd been talking to, and the sister replied, "I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was an old lady standing over my baby, and I had to tell her to get away." What? No. According to Kip, there were more unexplained incidences in the house, including mysteriously moving lamps, and a creepy occurrence with a fire alarm that went off while his wife was outside working in the garden. She immediately runs back into the house, figures out that it's the same smoke alarm in that same downstairs bedroom going off. When she opened the door, she said for a split second all she could see was this white fog. Within moments, however, the white fog disappeared and the alarm shut off. Convinced that the house was haunted, Kip's wife reached out to a neighbor to learn more about the property and discovered that the previous owner was a 90-year-old woman that had been tragically killed in a house fire. Needless to say, we fixed up the house and got out of there as fast as we could, says Kip. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed doing it, and I will see you in a couple days for another Spooktober, maybe another video. I'll see you in a couple days. I'm filming all of these and I don't know when they're gonna go up versus the other ones, and as I am watching myself again now, I see that I've been glitchy, so hopefully I'm not glitchy through this whole video, but whatever, we're posting it anyway because it's almost 45 minutes long. Thank you guys. I hope that it's not glitchy, and